write, but she was reading it. We were supposed to have it memorized. All right. All right. All right. Yes. Okay. So we are through Jehu and the kings of Israel. All right. All right. So now let's sing our kings of Israel song. All right. Jeroboam, Nadab, Bashani, Zimri, Omri, Ahab, Ahaziah, Joram, Jehu, Joahaz, Joash, Jeroboam, two, Zechariah, Shalom, Menahem, Pekahiah, Pekah, Hoshea. All right. Before I switch the side, can anyone tell us the kings of Judah that we've covered so far? Karen.
Okay, Rehoboam, Abijah, Asa, Jehoshaphat, Jehoram, Ahaziah.
Good.
Now we're going into Joash.
Yes, very good. All right, very good. And I like the one that she didn't say there. That's good. We'll talk about that.
Yeah, I don't consider her a king.
Agreed. Agreed, 100%. 100%. But she is in our song, unfortunately. But that's exactly what we'll talk about this morning. All right? All right, so, kings of Judah. Rehoboam, Abijah, Asa, and Jehoshaphat, Joram, Ahaziah, Athaliah, Joash, Amaziah, and Uzziah, Jotham, and Ahaz, Hezekiah, Asa, and Josiah, Jehoahaz, Jehoiakim, Jehoiachin, Zedekiah. All right, so let's, think about what we talked about on Wednesday. We talked about primarily about Jehu on Wednesday. In one word, how would you describe the story of Jehu? One word. I'm not looking for a particular one necessarily, but
Zeal.
Zeal? Yes, all right. He was very zeal. He was a man of action. Okay, very good. Others? I'm sorry?
Destructive.
Destructive? Okay, yes. He was very destructive. Jesse? Pride. Okay, good. Yes, good. All right. Karen?
Determined.
I'm sorry?
Determined.
Determined. All right, yeah. He was very determined. He at the beginning, right? He was going to do the full job, right? Didn't leave anything undone. All right. The word that comes to my mind is bloody, maybe violent, right? There's a lot of killing in the story of Jehu, at least in terms of him becoming a king. Who were people that he killed I guess before he became king?
He killed prophets of Baal.
Okay, prophets of Baal. Anyone who was worshipers of Baal? Yep.
Jezebel.
Okay, yes. All right, kills Jezebel or has her killed, yes. All right. Who else? Jesse?
He actually killed 42 brothers of the king of Judah.
Yes, all right. So he kills the brothers of the king of Judah, right?
Slaughters all of Ahab's descendants.
Okay, yeah, Ahab's descendants, including what kings? Ahaziah, which one? Judah, Ahaziah of Judah. All right, there's one from both. Yep. And who else?
The son of Ahab was.
Son of Ahab in Israel was Joram. Okay. All right. All right. All right. We'll go back to the family chart there in a minute. All right. Yeah. So he kills Joram, king of Israel. He kills Ahaziah, king of Judah. All right? So if he's killed the king of Israel, who's going to be the next king of Israel? He is. All right? He's going to be the next king. Jehu is going to be the next king in Israel. Was Jehu a righteous king? Okay. I hear no. I see some...
Not really.
Not really. Okay, that's actually a good answer.
He did do some things that he was commended for through God.
Okay, yeah, all right, so we go back to 2 Kings 10 there. He does, at the beginning, all of this destruction, the killing of Ahab's family, all of that was at God's command, all right? God told him to do that. That was what God had prophesied. And so in doing all that, killing all the prophets of Baal, he gets rid of the Baal worship. All of that was at God's command. And God is pleased with that. And what does God do for him because he did that? Jesse.
He promised them 4 generations of his family, basically dynasty, would sit on the throne.
Yeah, all right, so he's going to have 4 generations of his sons will reign on the throne, okay, which is going so we can track that as we go along. That's the longest dynasty in Israel's history, okay, the northern kingdom. All right, but you guys said no, you guys said not really, and was he righteous, and why is that? Yes, Tom.
He may have done a lot of things that God asked at the start, but he refused to take down the golden calves because it was deeply rooted in Israel's, I guess the northern kingdom's foundings or something like that.
Exactly. He does get rid of the Baal worship, but then he doesn't go far enough. He doesn't get rid of the golden calves, right? He still follows in the sins of Jeroboam. And so at the end of chapter 10 there, it says, verse 31, Jehu was not careful to walk in the law of the Lord, the God of Israel, with all his heart. Right? Remember when we studied Deuteronomy, when we studied the law, how many times we talk about Deuteronomy over and over? Be careful, be careful, be careful. It's not enough to get rid of some bad things. We have to be careful to do what the law says, right? To follow it with all our heart. Again, from Leviticus, from Deuteronomy, right? So he didn't do that. And so he's not ultimately a righteous king because of that. Because of that, then the text at the end of chapter 10 tells us that God starts sending people to come destroy parts of his kingdom, all right? Specifically Hazael. We know who Hazael is from before. Verse 32, chapter 10, verse 32, Hazael comes, defeated them throughout the territory of Israel, from the Jordan eastward, all the land of Gilead. So if you look at the map, this area over here on the east of the Jordan in Gilead, they're in kind of the light green. So Hazael of Syria comes down and starts destroying that. Now, I just want to point this out. Tom mentioned on Wednesday how much Jehu, there's a lot that we know about Jehu we see in from history, from archaeology. A lot has been discovered, and he had a whole chart with tons of them. I want to just point out a couple things to you. This is a statue of Shalmaneser III, who's the king of Assyria. All right, so you have Hazael coming down from Syria to attack Jehu. This is the king of Assyria, all right? So over to the east, right? To the east of the Fertile Crescent, over in Mesopotamia, is Assyria, who is starting to rise in power to become a world power, all right? And this guy was the king at the time, Shalmaneser, and this is a statue of him. And on the statue, there's carvings where he describes his various conquests and so on. And I just want to read you what it says here in part of what it says on the statue. So this is Shalmaneser talking about himself. He says, "In my 18th year of reigning, I crossed the Euphrates for the 16th time. Hazael of Damascus, trusting in the might of his soldiers, carried out an extensive muster of his troops. I fought with him and defeated him. I pursued him. I imprisoned him in Damascus, his royal city. I marched to Mount Haranu and razed, destroyed, burned, and plundered cities without number. I marched to Mount Baal-Larisi, which is a cape jutting out into the sea." All right, so that's probably referring to Mount Carmel, right? A mountain that juts out into the sea, right? If you think about the map where Mount Carmel is. But note, they have a different name, which is based on Baal, okay? Probably because of the Baal worship that went on there. Anyway, it says, "So I marched to that mountain, and I erected my royal statue there. At that time, I received tribute from the people of Tyre, Sidon, and from Jehu of the house of Omri." So this guy is just describing his conquest, and one of them is he crossed over, he defeats Hazael, and remember Hazael at this point has defeated Jehu, and so he continues on and defeats Jehu. So the Bible text doesn't tell us about this. It tells us about Hazael, but the Bible text doesn't tell us about this, but also, apparently, Jehu paid tribute to the king of Assyria at this time. All right? This is called the Black Obelisk of Shalmaneser III, from the same guy, same king of Assyria, and if you look closely there, you can see there's different depictions, pictures again, of his conquests. But what's really cool about this is if we zoom in on one of them, if you can see it there, this guy, the third guy from the left here is Shalmaneser. There's a guy bowing down before him and kissing the ground in front of him. That is Jehu. So this is the only known picture we have of a king of Israel or Judah. And it is a picture of Jehu bowing and kissing the ground before Shalmaneser. Okay? And you can see this. The original is in the British Museum, but you can see an exact copy of this black obelisk, which contains that picture in the museum up in Chicago at the used to be the Oriental Institute. So you can just go right up there and see the only existing picture of a king of Israel, of Jehu. All right? And actually, we're hoping to do that. I'm hoping to kind of organize for whoever wants to go next quarter, because next quarter there's going to be a whole lot of stuff in that museum up in Chicago that's going to relate to what we're going to talk about. All right, so anyway, just to kind of show you that particular about Jehu. All right, okay, so Jehu is going to then become the next king of Israel. But remember, Ahaziah of Judah was also killed by Jehu. So that raises a question, who's going to become the next king of Judah? All right, now if we think about some things, let's see. Yes, all right, so this is a chart we've been looking at. All right, of the family tree here, you see Jezebel and Ahab. You had King Ahaziah of Israel, then Joram. Joram was the one who was killed by Jehu. And then Jehu's going to become the next king of Israel. On Judah's side, you had Jehoshaphat, you had Joram, who was married to Athaliah, the daughter of Ahab and Jezebel. What happened to all of Joram's brothers? He killed them. He killed all his own brothers. So at that moment, it's only Joram, okay? He has a son, Ahaziah, who becomes king next. What happens to all his brothers? They get killed by the Arabians and the Philistines who were raiding at the time. So now it's only Ahaziah. Okay? So think about this. Remember, this is the line of David, right? That's been going down here. And right now it's just Ahaziah and then his sons. So who's going to become the next ruler of Judah? Yes, Athaliah. Okay? Athaliah is in chapter, if we go to chapter 11, how does she become the ruler in Judah? Yes, she kills all the sons of Ahaziah. The royal family is called, specifically all the sons of Ahaziah. In other words, she kills all her own grandchildren, so that she herself can become the ruler, queen, basically. Okay? And we'll talk about some other people on this chart later on. All right? So, we see Athaliah, then as we come to chapter 11, reigning in Judah. So she basically here usurps the throne. Okay? So she kills all the royal family. She kills her own grandchildren. Who is Athaliah again?
She is the daughter of Ahab.
Yes, both correct. She's the daughter of Ahab and Jezebel, okay? So, does her behavior here remind you of Jezebel?
Yeah.
Okay? In what way? Okay, she's ruthless. Power hungry. All right, she's willing to kill to get whatever she wants, right? Remember 1 Kings 18, she's killing all the prophets. Okay, in 1 Kings 21, she kills Naboth so that they can have his vineyard, right? So she was willing to kill, do whatever she wants, ruthless, to get what she wants. Athaliah, like mother, like daughter, same way, maybe worse, right? I mean, I don't know. If you would never name your daughter Jezebel, but I would probably think about naming Jezebel before Athaliah. Like, I mean, she just takes it to a whole nother level here, okay? To usurp the throne herself, okay? And importantly, besides, obviously, the extreme evil of killing all her own family in order to get on the throne, she's not from Judah, right? She's from Israel at best through Ahab and through Jezebel. She's Jezebel's not even an Israelite, okay? So she's on the throne. So her reigning in Judah would appear to end, and killing all the grandson would appear to end the lineage of David. Okay? Well, why does that matter? God's promises to David. Where? What chapter of the Bible? 2 Samuel 7, right? 2 Samuel 7. 2 Samuel 7, all right? Okay, when I say that, you guys speak. 2 Samuel 7. 2 Samuel 7. Promises to David, okay? All right, one of the most important passages of the Bible, because we've been tracking it this whole time, and we get here to 2 Kings 11, and apparently it's over. Okay? But it's not, all right? Because you guys are shaking your head, all right? So here's the point we mentioned earlier. Notice that the text never calls Athaliah a queen. All right? It does say she reigned, because she does. For 6 years, she's in charge. But notice, it doesn't call her a queen. It doesn't give any of the usual introductions, right? Every king, we get the introduction. They're the son. They're whose son they were, how old they were when they began to reign, how long they reigned, etc. None of that. None of the summary at the end of her reign, right? The summary of the end of their reign, like we always get. None of that here. And notice even other kings who have basically killed someone and usurped the throne, they all got at least treatment as a king, even if they were evil or so on. Athaliah doesn't even get, in the text, doesn't even get that treatment. Okay? Why? Tom.
She's not the lineage.
Yeah, okay? The point is, she's a usurper. She's not from the line of David. All right? So even though she's kind of going to be in charge here for 6 years, in God's eyes, she's not a true king/queen, right?
As far as that, the actual true king is still alive.
Yes.
He's little, but.
Yes, and the true king is secretly still alive, right? Why?
Because he was hidden when he was a little child.
Okay, yeah, so one of the babies was saved, and who is that? Joash was saved from Athaliah's killing spree, okay, and who saved him?
The daughter of his aunt.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, whatever.
Jehoshaphat, right, okay, so, which, as somebody said, was his aunt, right? Okay, so if we look over here on the right side of the chart, Jehoram had son Ahaziah, also had a daughter, Jehoshaphat, okay? And so she saves, basically, one of her nephews, Joash, and Athaliah doesn't know about it, okay? So she hides him, and Athaliah doesn't realize it. Now, she was also told she's married to Jehoiada, who's a priest, okay? So we'll talk about him. All right. Okay, notice on the chart, so who are Jehoshaphat's parents? Athaliah and Joram. How does that strike you? Yeah, not good, all right? Both of those were very evil. We've already talked about Athaliah. Remember we talked about Joram was one of the most evil kings of Judah. He was influenced by Ahab and Jezebel, his parents, and influenced by his wife, Athaliah, okay? And yet here's Jehoshaphat doing what? Saving the child, okay? So does having bad parents mean that we have to do bad ourselves? No. It's actually the opposite point of what we made last week about Joram, right? The fact that he had a righteous grandfather, didn't mean that he himself was righteous or pleasing to God. The other side of that is also true. The fact that we have unrighteous or wicked parents doesn't mean that we ourselves have to do what's wrong, right? And Jehoshaphat is proof of that. Okay, so Jehoshaphat is an amazing character here, right? She saves Joram, she hides him, he's hidden in the temple, basically right under Athaliah's nose, if you will, right? Because she's in the palace, which is right next to the temple, and yet, of course, she has no interest in what's in the temple of God, and so he's basically hidden right under her nose for 6 years. So God is working through Jehoshaphat to fulfill his promises. Right? It's hanging by a thread here, the promise to David. But you think about Jehoshaphat, you're maybe reminded of Moses, right? Moses' mom and the midwives who saved him. Hebrews 11:23 says that they did that by faith. Right? It says by faith Moses was hidden. So it's not Moses' faith at that point, he's the baby. It's talking about his parents. right? And they did that, it says, not fearing the edict of the king. Same kind of thing here, right? Jehoshaphat risks her own life. Obviously, Athaliah is willing to kill whoever gets in her way. So she is risking her own life to save her nephew, but also to save the promise of God, right? Yes.
I'm thinking, if she was married to a priest, he probably actually taught her maybe.
Yeah.
To help her have faith in God and know the promise of David that his line is still going to rule on the throne.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. So this is an example of a good marriage where they're working together to fulfill God's. We've seen lots of examples of the opposite, right? But here we see two people who are faithful, who are married to each other, and who are working faithfully for God's will, right? Yes. Cindy.
Isn't it supposed to be Joash, not Jordan?
Do I have the wrong thing up there? Yes, you're right. That's a typo. Should be Joash.
Okay.
Yes, very good. See, I told you, I knew I'd get the names wrong, right? Too many Jorams. All right. Okay, and just in case you're confused, there'll be another Joash later coming as well. So just. And again, same thing. I should have mentioned with Joash. Same thing. Sometimes you'll see Jehoash. Okay. Sometimes you'll see just Joash. Same guy. Different spelling, same guy, okay? But there's going to be another one later on. All right, so we see God working through the faithful here to accomplish his will. All right, so we think again about God's promises to David, 2 Samuel 7. That it's hanging by the smallest possible margin. Remember, all of Jehoram's brothers were dead, all of Ahaziah's brothers are dead, and now all of Ahaziah's sons are dead except this one little baby that's hidden away. And what's going to happen if somebody squeals or Athaliah finds out about it? He's going to be gone too, right? So this is like we are on the smallest of possible margins. And think about the fact, if you're just an ordinary citizen of Judah, right? You're not Jehoshaphat, you're not Jehoiada, maybe his nurse, maybe a very few small people know that he's alive, right? If you're anybody else in the kingdom, in your mind, what's happened to the line of David? It's gone. For how long? Forever, but that lasts for 6 years before it finally gets revealed that he's alive. So for 6 years, it looks like the lineage of David is gone. Man.
Which would mean for 6 years it probably felt like God had abandoned them. Like
Exactly.
they didn't know.
Right. I mean, think about trying to keep your faith in God's promises in that situation where for 6 years, by all appearances, the line is gone. Yes?
When this person took over Israel, took over Judah, was Judah in the midst of a very bad wave of sin? Because it kind of sounds like it.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Because the kings before this were descendants of Ahab, right? We had Jehoram, we had Ahaziah. They were
really bad,
extremely wicked kings.
That
Yes,
explains why.
100%. Yep. Okay, so just think about keeping our faith in God's promises in the darkest of times, when it seems to us like God's promises have failed. Everything we see says God's promises have failed, and yet they haven't. Right? Kind of reminds me of Abraham when he was called to sacrifice Isaac, right? Sacrificing Isaac meant that God's promises would be failing. All right? Except what does the Hebrews tell us that Abraham thought about that? Right. He thought God could raise him from the dead. He could do the impossible. That's the kind of faith you would have to have at this kind of time if you had faith in God. Right? That something impossible has happened. All right? Okay. So, we fast forward a little bit. Okay? They managed to hide him for 6 years, or until he's 6 years old. And now Jehoiada is going to be ready to, decides now is the time to bring him out and make him the true king, okay? So who does he enlist to help? Him.
The captains of the guards?
Yeah, okay, basically the royal guards, okay? So he basically talks to them and kind of secretly gets their help. Does he have any problem getting their help? Doesn't seem like it. Did Jehu have any problem getting people on his side when he was going around to kill all the descendants of Ahab?
No.
No, Remember, he's driving off, and messengers come out to meet him, and he's like, get behind me, you're on my side now. And they say, okay. It happens again, right? Every time he goes. When he goes to kill Jezebel, who's on my side? Her own servants appear and throw her over the wall, right? Everybody and you see that same kind of thing now, all right? When Jehoiada goes to get help, these are the royal guards. Whose side are they supposed to be on? Yeah, they're supposed to be on Athaliah's side. They're supposed to be her guards, her protectors, and they're switching over to help Jehoiada now, right? So you certainly get the picture that people have no love and no loyalty for the family of Ahab, right? We already saw that with Jehoram. Remember when he died? What did it say? Nobody cared. He died to no one's regret, right? You clearly see that even though these people are in power, the citizens, ordinary people, are not happy about it, okay? So he sets them up in 3 shifts, basically, and comes up with this plan to protect the king, because when he reveals the king, this is a 6-year-old kid, right? So he's going to need protection, because obviously Athaliah is going to try to kill him right away, right? So basically, they kind of have their duty in shifts, and it even says when they go off duty, then they come to protect the King Joram, right? There, I said Joram again, see? Joash. Protect the King Joash. Okay. All right, now notice it mentions a couple things here. It mentions these captains of the guards, it says, as the Karites, okay? So that the Karites there are likely related to the Kerethites. If you remember when we talked about David and his reign, we had the Kerethites and the Pelethites, and we said specifically that they were likely descendants of, they were Philistines, not descendants, they were probably Philistines who came over from David's time in the Philistines, and then when David becomes king, they kind of become his royal guard. All right, so these are sort of their descendants, they're calling them the Karites now, but almost certainly just based on the name are related to those same people, okay? There's another call out back to the time of David here in the text, and what is that? Well, verse 10.
The spears and shields that had been King David.
Yeah, all right, so he gave these guards the shields and the spears that had been from the time of David, okay? So again, I think these are making the point for us that these are symbols that he's going to be restoring the line of David here, okay? Restoring Joash to be the true king is restoring the line of David, okay? Which is obviously of supreme importance in what's going on here. All right? Okay, so now they're ready. He's got some guards. He's got some protectors. He's ready. He takes the king. So this takes the king, a 6-year-old kid, out to just outside the temple. Talks about him standing beside the pillar. Remember the 2 pillars that were out on the outside of the temple. And so he does some things here, very symbolic. He's ready to make the big reveal, if you will, okay? So he puts the crown on his head. It says he's given the testimony, which not sure exactly what it is. Very possibly could be the law of Moses, okay? The testimony, so a copy of the law of Moses, again, is symbolic here. He's specifically anointed as king, and what are all the people doing?
Long live the king.
Yeah, shouting, cheering, long live the king, okay?
Well, we know that law was given, the kings had it, he got lost for a long time, it's going to be found later, but we
Yep.
know that they had it.
Yes, which would be very cool if Jehoiada here is giving him, like, the law, again, that idea of having his own copy of the law of Moses, which every king was supposed to do. Again, that's a little bit of a presumption, but would make sense. Okay, so now the people catch on, they're making noise, they're shouting, long live the king, and so who's going to hear about it? Athaliah, right next door, literally hears the noise, okay? And she comes out, and what does she see when she comes out? Karen.
She yells treason.
Okay, she yells treason, that's right. What were you going to say, Daryl?
She sees that this is a done deal.
Yeah.
It's all been under the radar and poof.
Exactly. So by the time she gets out there, the captains and the trumpeters are standing there with the king. The people are rejoicing. The people are blowing trumpets. I mean, everybody's on Joash's side now, all right? So she yells, treason, treason, okay? Why are you guys laughing?
Because he's gonna lose power.
Yeah, all right? The pot calling the kettle black, right? The person who is most guilty themselves is the first one to scream about somebody else, right? She is the ultimate treason, right? She's usurped the throne when in no way is she the rightful king. And now the rightful king is being made king, and she's the one to call treason, all right? But obviously, she's trying to get people to rally to her side, right? It's treason, kill this guy. But what happens instead? Go ahead.
Well, her guards don't even like her.
Yeah.
The guards have gone away, and she doesn't know it.
Exactly. Exactly. Yep. Okay. So what happens instead?
He seizes her, the guard sees her, and they take her outside the temple.
Yeah. All right. So Jehoiada commands that she needs to be put to death, and they do it outside the temple. But she's the one put to death. Okay. All right. So then what happens?
Is that the,
Oh, go ahead, Joe.
I would say that it's at the horse's entrance.
Okay.
I would think that it's probably not kept absolutely clean. Should be
Ah.
cleaning.
Good point. Interesting. Right. That's a good point. Right? The people don't go through the horse's entrance. That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. Thank you. Yes.
The priest, Jehoiada made a covenant with the Lord and the people.
Yeah. All right. So now Jehoiada he's making Joash the true king, but there's more that needs to go on here, right? To the previous point, these are people who have been steeped in wickedness and idolatry for a long time, okay? So Jehoiada, there needs to be reform, okay? So he makes a covenant between the Lord and the king and the people, all right? And the covenant is that they should be the Lord's people. And if you think about that them becoming the Lord's people, that's the basis for every covenant, right? It was the basis for the covenant in the law of Moses, right? Remember at the Mount Sinai, that I will be your God and you shall be my people, right? That's the whole point. And all the people responded, yes, we will be your people. All right? He's restoring that idea that they are the Lord's people, that they belong to God, that's what the covenant is based on. Yeah, just.
It's a huge contrast between what Jehu did and what Jehoiada's doing here. Jehu just led him back to the idol worship, and he's actually restoring.
Yeah, good point, right? Jehu did a lot of the hard work of getting rid of the evil kings like Jehoiada did, but he doesn't take the next step. That's the whole point of what it talks about. He doesn't take the next step of actually restoring true worship. Jehoiada does, right? That's a really good point, really good contrast there, okay? All right, notice there's also a covenant between Joram and the people, right? Okay, so again, basically kind of cementing that Joram is the king. All right, Joash. Yeah. Obviously, when I was putting the slides together, I got something in mind. Okay, between Joash and the people. All right. Then what? Yes.
They went through the land and got rid of the house of Baal.
Okay, so then he goes and destroys the Baal worship. He tore down the house of Baal, the altars, the images, killed the priest of Baal, and set watchmen over the house of the Lord. Okay? In other words, the house of the Lord, as we've seen, has been frequently used for the idolatrous worship. Okay, so he's setting watchmen out to stop that, right? That it's only going to be the service of the Lord. Okay? And then we're told that that Joram is seated on the throne, and he is how old? I'm sorry? Joash?
7 years old.
7 years old, okay? He's 7 years old. So Joash is 7 years old when he becomes king, all right? So that's going to be an important point as we go into think about his reign, right? That obviously it kind of has to be this way because of the situation. Jehoiada has to do it as soon as he gets the opportunity. But obviously, a 7-year-old doesn't, have any power or have any idea how to reign. So in reality, as we get into chapter 12, what we're going to see is that Jehoiada is basically kind of influencing him as king early on. All right, but that'll be chapter 12. All right, and then what are we told there as we get to the end of the chapter in verse 20? Okay, the people rejoice. Again, as we've seen, the people were none too happy about what's been going on under Jehoram, under Ahaziah, under the family of Ahab, and of course now 6 years with Athaliah. It talked about the city being filled with blood, and so it's been a pretty brutal time. So now the people are rejoicing, yeah.
I like the phrase, and the city was quiet.
Okay, what does that mean that the city was quiet? Peace, right? Okay, so that's a biblical term for peace. That there's peace. This upheaval, this violence that has been going on. Now the city is quiet, and there is peace. Why is the text emphasizing that now? That there's peace, Jesse?
Well, in the last chapter, I think I mentioned to you what do you have to do with peace? About 7 times, 8 times.
Yeah.
And so there was no peace with sin still there. Now that sin is gone.
Yes, exactly. And I love that point that Jehu made. Again, when Jehu's doing well, remember, so go back to chapter 9, verse 19. Remember, all these people are coming out and asking, as he's going around to kill people, asking him, is it peace? Is it peace? Is it peace? And notice what he says, 2 Kings 9 and verse 19. Jehu answered, what do you have to do with peace? That's the wrong. Later on, further down, then when Joram of Israel comes out, verse 22, he answered, what peace can there be so long as the whorings and the sorceries of your mother Jezebel are so many? And that's such a great answer right there, because he's saying, all these people are asking, is it peace? Is it peace? And he's saying, no, it's not peace, but why? Yeah, because all this evil is going on, and there can't be peace. If we're trying to do the right thing, there can't be peace with evil. Right? So God throughout time in the New Testament talks about unity and peace, and that's what we want, but that only happens between people who are serving God. That's the only way to have true unity and peace. Now, we can cover some things up and pretend everything's okay, but in reality, the only way to have true peace is when people are serving God, because if we're not, then there can be no peace. All right? But now, when we get to the end of chapter 11, the line of Ahab is completely removed. God's prophecy against Ahab and his family, going all the way back to 1 Kings 21, it's taken a while, but now all that prophecy is fulfilled, and now there can be true peace. Right? Real peace, because the right king is on the throne, God's prophecy has been fulfilled, and the evil has been removed. All right? Yeah, Joel.
A couple of things I was thinking about. One, going back to Joash. When Athaliah heard all the rejoicing and clapping and everything, she heard the thing the temple was really kind of old then and everything, so it's easy to see how she would hear.
Yeah.
But yet, Joash was kept in the temple undercover, and how could people not hear a baby cry? How for 6 years?
Yep.
They didn't see it. Secondly, I was thinking that over in Chronicles 24, it says that Joash did what was right in the Lord's supper about.
The eyes of the Lord.
To the Lord.
Yep.
He did what the Lord said, as long as Jehoiada was alive.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was two.
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll talk more about that second point on Wednesday when you get into chapter 12. Back to your first point, and I think you could certainly imagine that God had a hand, in him being able to not be heard for 6 years and then being able to hide him successfully for 6 years. Again, similar to Moses. Was there a hand? No? Okay, yeah.
But I picture during this whole time, while he's hiding in the temple, I picture one of the citizens telling you, dude, there's babies, I'm telling you, that's what's going on. They're like, shut up, or say he's talking out in there, that's not happening.
Yeah.
Because something like that, just maybe with God it wouldn't happen, but on a logical standpoint, somebody would be running their mouth out there and everybody would look at it like they're a nut.
Yeah, and it talks about, obviously, Jehoshaphat, Jehoiada, and a nurse, and I would imagine it being in a bedroom in the temple, it mentions. I would imagine the people who knew that had to be very, very tight beyond that, because all it takes is one word that gets back to Athaliah, and it's over, right? All right, so let's talk about our lessons for today. First lesson is the power of one person faithfully serving God. All right, think about how important Jehoshaphat is in this story. All right, she saves her nephew, yes, but in doing so, she saves the only remnant of the line of David. Okay, now obviously, again, that is God's power working through her. But someone faithfully serving God, the power of a person. And we probably need to talk a lot more about Jehoshaphat. Maybe she's not, Moses' mother is mentioned in Hebrews 11 and so on, so we talk about her. But Jehoshaphat is doing the exact same thing here, right? Okay? Secondly, God always keeps his promises. And I know we've been saying this over and over again, but we can't emphasize it enough. The text is just hitting this over and over again. God's promises never fail, even if they appear to us to have failed. For 6 years, someone in the kingdom of Judah would have thought God's promises had failed. So even if everything we can look at says, wow, God's promises have failed, somehow they haven't, because they never do. Okay? Notice, for good, like here with Joram, keeping the promises to David, but also for bad. God's promises for bad always come true as well, specifically to Ahab's family, now through Athaliah. Jehu got most of it, but Athaliah was still out there, ruling in Judah, and even she now gets her due as well. God's always promises for good or for bad. We like the good promises, but the promises for bad always come true as well also. Okay? And then the last one, just to think about this morning, spiritual reform, thinking about Jehoiada's reforms, whether it's as a group or whether it's just us individually, looks like what Jehoiada did. All right, and think about that. First of all, it starts with a covenant with God. Reform, turning back to God, is always a covenant relationship, a promise between God and us. Okay? And specifically, that we will be your people, right? When we become Christians as an individual, what are we saying? We're going to serve God. He's going to be our God. We're going to be his people, okay? Secondly, remove the idols. Whatever sin is going on in the nation, in the church, in our own personal lives, when we become a Christian, we have to remove that sin. It has to go. Okay? Third, put the true king on the throne. All right? And obviously I phrased that a specific way. Obviously for Judah, the true king at this time was Joash. Okay? But even then, you could go back all the way to the whole idea of having a king in the first place. Who is the true king? God. Okay? When we become a Christians in our life, who has to be the king on the throne? Jesus. And what does that mean? We submit. He rules. If he's the king on the throne in our lives, in our hearts, we submit to him and he rules. What he says goes. Okay? And then, when that happens, when we've made a covenant with God, we've removed the idols, and we put the true king on the throne, then what? Peace. Then we get to enjoy the peace. Right? Beautiful. Yes, Daryl.
Jesus told the apostles, I give you peace, not like this world.
Exactly. True peace. When people use the word peace in the world, and people use the word peace in the Christian world, completely wrong all the time. All right? This is the true peace that comes from God when we are in this kind of a relationship with God. All right, very good. Thank you very much. On Wednesday, chapter 12, and also make sure you read 2 Chronicles 24 along with it. We'll talk about the reign of Joash.